guys, welcome to another episode of The Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite film directors and the deeper meaning within their films. And this episode is going to be a special episode, even though every episode is usually a special episode. But this one, we're talking about a veteran director, a director who's been directing forever, a director whose age we do not know, but we know he is old. He's an old man. And that is Michael Mann. We will be talking about Michael Mann. If you do not know who Michael Mann is, he directed films such as Ali, Collateral, Last of the Mohicans, and then everyone's favorite Black Hat, Chris Hemsworth.
All right, enough of that one. That one trash.
Either way, we're going to be talking all about Michael Mann later on in this episode. But before we do that, we're going to do what we always do, and it's read your comments from last week's episode where we talked about Spike Jonze. And we had our first in-studio guest, Mr. Cody Hall.
Cody.
Shout out to Cody for doing that.
Round of applause.
And next week, we're going to have another special guest. So we're going to keep doing this, guys, as long as you guys keep listening, even if it's the few.
Yeah.
To us, you guys are a lot. So we're going to bring in the top-notch guests. We might have friends of ours. We might have people here in the Collider studio. And who knows? We might have some famous people come here in studio and... Because, you know, RB3 and I know the famous people all in Hollywood.
Hey, man, let's do a meeting of Tommy Wiseau and, like, see if we could, like, pull some strings and get Tommy Wiseau. He's been on Collider Live, right? He was on Collider Live?
I think you would know more than I
mean, I
Aren't
don't
you
know.
here?
I wasn't there for
the
day he was there, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was on, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only really, available on Mondays mornings.
So, gotcha. Let's start out with Connor Old, who says, Her is one of my favorite movies of all time, and yet I can't exactly put into words the way I truly feel about this movie. It evokes so many emotions from me that even though I haven't stopped thinking about it since I saw it 4 years ago, I find it hard to truly express my thoughts. Are there any movies that affected you like this, where you loved it so much that it's almost impossible to truly express your feelings through words? Wow, that's a good comment and a good question. RB3, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few of those. I mean, one of those I mentioned on the Spike Jonze episodes being John Malkovich for me is one of those movies that I really
like an emotional tug to you.
Yeah. I mean, I get. I mean, if you mean like an emotional, like makes me cry, you mean like makes me cry every time?
No, I think he just means like a movie that impacted you and infected you so much that you can't even put a finger on why it's good. Because it's just like so powerful.
Yeah. It's that one and it's Magnolia by Paul Thomas Anderson. Those are the two.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of movies that do that for me. Obviously, Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. No, I'm kidding. But I'm not kidding, to be honest, because nostalgia, man. I'm telling you, that nostalgia. As long as it reminds me of something. But
you have nostalgia for Return of the Jedi?
Hell yeah.
Oh, okay.
But earlier movies, I mean, recent movies would probably be something like A Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh yeah, Slumdog Millionaire.
That's one
too. Yeah.
Where I walked out and I was like, that was so powerful.
That touched like every emotion.
That's true, yeah. And Nightcrawler, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
There's emotion in that? There's
a ton of emotion. It made me feel like, dang man, I got to be a messed up human being in order to succeed in life.
I was gonna say, I think the whole point of that movie is like
no emotions.
Yeah.
I just filled out this survey thing that I was doing for another program that I'm working at here in Hollywood, and they were like, name a movie that really impacted, and I was like, Nightcrawler. And then they're tell us why, and I'm like, damn it, man, because of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Hey.
Laura H. Horsfell. Hey, shout out to Laura. She disappeared from our comment section. And she acknowledges that in this comment. She says, good show as always, fellas. Cody made an excellent third for this one. Back up in your comment section because I'm a fairly big fan of Jonze, and this was both very enjoyable and very interesting for a few reasons. With your musing about general audience's reaction to being John Malkovich, film fans were bowled over. All my friends and I adored it. I was also really pleased to see Catherine Keener get a ton of praise in her highest profile role to date. RB3's words on this film made me really happy. I was 20 when it hit theaters, and I'm glad that it can have the same reaction, can still have the same exciting effect on young cinematic. Incidentally, I was in the same room with Jonze once when I got to the San Francisco premiere of The Virgin Suicides, and he was there with Sofia Coppola.
Whoa, Sofia Coppola! That's another one.
That's one that we're gonna do. I think we might even do that like this month.
Hey, soon, man. I mean, we have it. We don't have the thumbnail up.
Yeah.
But she's the only. There's only 2 women on our like original thumbnail. She's one of them. Also, by the way, you talk about 2 filmmakers. That's like a power couple in Hollywood right there, man. Like Sofia Coppola also got like a couple movies that like when we talk about her filmography, like some of her movies like deeply affect me pretty good too. So
yeah, man, Sofia Coppola, man, we're gonna get all the kids to listen to that podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
all
nobody,
the kids.
I'm sure nobody's gonna really listen. Hey man, we should do Ace, I got it.
Who?
We gotta do a Coppola month, bro. We gotta do Francis Ford Coppola, Sofia Coppola. Who's the other Coppola? Is there any other Coppolas?
I don't know, man.
We just gotta do a whole Coppola like spread, bro.
Wouldn't that be the Coppola 2 weeks, bro?
Bro, but hey, bro, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, Francis Ford.
We could do like 2 on him, huh?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't know who else. I mean, we do a meeting of Nick Cage because he's a Coppola as well.
We could, but
hey.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can allow that, RB3. No, I'm kidding. Jonathan Peck says, I remember my dad picking me up from school early in the 4th grade on my birthday to see Where the Wild Things Are in theaters. And after I saw it, I told myself after the film, I might not see this movie ever again. This movie messed me up so much when I was young. Yeah, I mean, Cody had a similar reaction to that when he was on and talked about how it's such an emotional film and it's for kids, but not really for kids. But yeah, I mean, that's the power of Spike Jonze. He can have that emotional impact on you.
Yeah, he's a real heavy film. For a guy who produces Jackass and like does all this like crazy weird shit, directs funny commercials and music videos.
I love it.
Yeah, oh god.
That SNL performance. Ooh.
Nah, we're not talking about SNL. No Kanye. It's over, bro. It's over. It's over.
Did you see it though?
Dude. I'm not. No, bro.
Are you protesting SNL too,
bro? Yeah, I'm out, bro. You can't allow the coonery to hop on there like that, bro. Like, are you kidding me? And who let that footage leak too, man? And also, Chris Rock. Shame on you, Chris Rock, for recording Kanye talking stupid, man.
Hey, man, Cudi was there.
You should let that be private, bro.
What about Kid Cudi, man?
Bro, dog, man, it's over, dog. It's over. It's over. I thought Kanye was back on the right track. He moved back to Chicago. He did all the good things. You know what I mean? He was on the right PR train. And now he's talking about he was going to record his album in Africa. Like, shut the fuck up.
He's going to abolish the 13th Amendment, bro.
Yeah. Well, I agree with him on that. See, that's the thing that like. See, that's what's really
people misinterpreted with that. What do you meant?
Well, yeah, people think he meant like he abolished like
bring back slavery.
Bring back slavery. No,
like
that's not
Ready Player One. No, I'm kidding.
No. What he means is he wants to take out the part about the prisoners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and the irony that the president he's supporting wants to incarcerate more people.
Yeah, that's true. But
and wants to bring back like freaking what is that called? Search and seizure or whatever.
Yeah. Stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk.
Yeah. But Kim Kardashian, she seems to be on the right side of the politics.
Yeah.
She freed one, non-violent drug offender. Maybe she could do another. You know, so I hope maybe Kim, if you're listening to this show, Kim Kardashian's not listening to this show. Kardashian, if you're listening to this show, talk to your husband. Give him some left-wing ideas, man. Break him out of this. Don't let him keep him away from Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, yo. Like just. Bring him back to the good side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man, politics, bro.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if I can get into it. I mean, it's fine if he wants to support him, but it's certain things he says where I'm like, bro, that's exactly why.
Well,
you shouldn't support him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, with the whole tweet, I mean, that's the exact opposite of what the hat means. But you know, I don't know. Somebody gotta talk to him.
Let's talk about something similar to Kanye West, and that is Michael Mann.
Wow.
Definitely not similar at all. But either way, Michael Mann is a director that has an extensive filmography. Like I said before, he's a director that a lot of actors have worked with, and he likes to work with a lot of different actors as well. We'll be talking about that. And yeah, he has an extensive filmography going all the way back to, 1981 is his first feature. And he's been doing TV movies and TV series in the 70s as well. So he's definitely a veteran director. Yeah. He's definitely a director that has experience and has something to say in his movies. And that's kind of what I want to dive into before we even get into his movies, because I feel like there's so many, but I want to have more of a general discussion on Michael Mann, the director, and kind of what his current status is in Hollywood and what his legacy may be in Hollywood. So the first question I have for you, RB3, is what do you think makes him stand out as a director?
I mean, it's the style, man. I mean,
what is the style?
I think Michael Mann has a very not cold style, but very overt in its like in its objectivity to a certain extent. You know what I mean? And it's it's almost like too gritty realism to later on in his career, especially when we're talking about things like Heat and Ali and Collateral and his later films, Black Cat, Public Enemy, all that kind of stuff. Those are all very films that are very much rooted in a style of realism that's like so harsh, so extreme, and so but still vibrant and ghostly and still a little ethereal too. I think what I find most interesting about Michael Mann as a director is how he lives in his cinematography style. Kind of lives in darkness. It kind of lives in like being further away from the subject, distancing the camera is further away from the subject, distance from the character to the all that kind of stuff. So I think he has a very purposeful way of the way he does things, and I think all of that influences the directorial choices that he makes, and I think that's what makes him brilliant.
Do you think he's a recognizable name currently in Hollywood, especially compared to other directors like Spielberg, like a Ridley Scott, like a Tarantino? Because I almost feel like he gets kind of lost in the shuffle, lost in the history of great directors. He's not a name that you hear a lot. Do you agree with that? Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he's really had a big commercially like huge. I mean, of course, movies like The Insider was a success and won a lot of Oscars, it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. And then, of course, Heat was a big hit, but he hasn't had, Spielberg has, the Eat, and Michael Mann's an adult director. You know what I mean?
Sure. Michael
Mann's an adult director. And a lot of times who we choose to remember as our all-time favorite directors are directors who made movies that we favor as children, And, with Michael Mann, when you really think about it, all of his movies are very mature, very dark, and all that kind of stuff.
That's like a mic drop moment for you, man. I've never thought about that. That's such a good point. Because even films with like adult themes are still kind of geared, even like Aliens and stuff like that. You could still be like, whoa, it's crazy rated R, but I can enjoy it as like a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old because of its rated R-ness. It's not necessarily adult in its nature. Huh.
Yeah.
That's a good point, RB3. Yeah, because I do feel like he kind of gets lost in the giant spectrum of like favorite directors and best directors. He's not really a name that I hear a lot, and I was just curious to hear your take on that.
And also, I think we kind of joked about it in our text before doing this episode, but he makes long movies.
I texted you. I was like, bro, this guy makes all his movies are like 245, 252, 251. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing that for?
Yeah. I mean, it makes it hard on us.
It makes it hard on us. I like binge these movies. I'm like, whoa, bro.
Yeah, no, but that's part. And I think what, Michael Mann, I think, is one of the great directors. And, when we talk about Heat, you'll see, what I think about Heat. But it's not tough to get into his filmography. It's not hard to get into. Not hard. I'm sorry. It's not easy to jump into his filmography and just pick it up and just hold it like on your back. You know what I mean? And it's
like
not
Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like Scorsese. When Scorsese makes a 3-hour movie, it flies by in like 2 hours.
That's true.
Whereas when it's a Michael Mann movie, it feels and purposefully. I mean, that's part of his design. That's part of his style. Is to make you feel like you're living in this world. You know? But that also makes it a little harder for people to get into him.
What do you think is his signature as a director? What is the same thing that keeps coming up in all his movies?
Same thing. I mean,
whether it be a theme or a type of persona.
Yeah, I mean, I think the character that he portrays in a lot of his movies. I mean, his last name is Michael Mann. He portrays the man character, right? The man, the masculinity, the not taking any shit, no compromise, no surrender. That's kind of the attitude of all of his characters. That's Tom Cruise in Collateral. That's Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat. That's Ali. That's Daniel Day-Lewis, Last of the Mohicans, leading the people. That's all of his part, and I think that's what that's even Manhunter when we talk about man, I keep forgetting the character Hannibal Lecter. When we talk about somebody like Hannibal Lecter, he's uncompromised. He's not, he doesn't even. he's gonna kill and eat people and not even think about it, and brag to the police about it to most extent. So that's why it's so fascinating to see throughout his filmography how I think the disconnect in that type of ideology and those type of characters have kind of dwindled in modern times. You know, so when we see a newer movie like Black Hat comes out that portrays, you know, hokey, buff Chris Hemsworth as a computer hacker. And, you know, back in the 90s and the 80s, that would have been perfectly fine. But it's 2016, 2018, you know, that's not necessarily the image of manlyhood or of hacking that we have anymore. So,
as far as, you know, characters, that's kind of what he does. But as far as messages, as far as certain themes that he communicates with his audience in his movies, do you think there is one, or do you think he just kind of leaves it open-ended?
I think he leaves it. I think he leaves it open-ended. Okay. I mean, I think from movie to movie it shifts a little bit. I think what he has to say.
What about political stuff? Political aspects.
Political aspects. I mean, yeah, I think it depends on the subject too. I mean, I think you could read Collateral one way as a, you know, anti-capitalist, like this dude who's trying to buck the system, who is just, you know, who you know, Tom Cruise is essentially just getting revenge on the people who he's felt has wronged him throughout the past. And the way you can see that as like a twisted revenge tale. But you can also look at it from the Jamie Foxx perspective and get a completely different reading from it too. So, but then you look at something like Ali, where, you know, Ali in and of himself is a very political figure, and there's just going to be no way of avoiding that at all. So either you're going to address that in a way that's accepting, or you're going to address that in a way that chastises Ali to a certain extent.
Or you're going to choose to play the route of like, oh, let's just focus on him as a boxer. And just kind of leave everything else in the background, which is not what that movie does at all. But he could do that if he wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would think he would do a disservice to Ali, the true Muhammad Ali. If he did that, which I'm glad he didn't. Now, I want to talk to you as a film student. Film students nowadays, you know, you're going to USC right now, have the tendency, and this is why our podcast is kind of perfect for you, to kind of go back and watch movies from directors that have like big names, right? Whether it's a Hitchcock, whether it's, I don't know, like Spike Lee, whoever it may be, directors that are way before your time, right? Which is most directors, because you're a child. But film students have that kind of tendency, that kind of urge, that kind of desire to say, I want to check this guy's films out. I want to check this guy's films out. Do you feel like Michael Mann is someone who attracts film students to want to check out his films?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I especially, I mean, I think I think among cinephiles, he still has a very strong fan base, you know, especially people. I mean, it really depends on your entry point, though. You know, I mean, if you start off watching a movie like Black Hat as like your first like Michael Mann movie, you're probably just gonna be like, oh. Like I remember the first time I saw a Michael Mann movie, not knowing of who Michael Mann is or whatever, I just saw the Public Enemies with Johnny Depp, which I thought was like super dry and boring. But then I don't hate that movie, but it's just, you know, it felt like a paint by numbers like gangster type thing or whatever, you know. But then it wasn't until I watched some of his earlier movies, like to me, Heat is like the intro point to Michael Mann to me. Like if you watch Heat, and if you like that movie, you should watch all of Michael Mann's movies. But if you don't like that movie, you should probably like avoid them because they're all not the same, but they all deal in the same like ideology and the same, and both and all have that kind of like huge length to
Sure.
it.
And same kind of similar tone as far as like dramatic and take this seriously.
Heavy.
Yeah, definitely not like you know, dramatic themes with like comedy. Like Michael Mann isn't really known for that.
But I mean, he was one of the originators for the original Miami Vice, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, and then he did he directed the remake in 2006. So
with Colin Farrell and
Jamie Foxx, which is you know, is not comedic, but there's a little bit of buddy element that we see in that. So that's a little different, but
but then again, it's following up. Freaking Josh McCouga's, you know,
the Bad Boy
franchise.
Yeah.
Ooh. Either way, let's get into his movies. As we said before, Michael Mann has a lot of movies. Not too many, but he does have quite a few. So we kind of want to focus on the ones that kind of we feel more passionate about. But at the same time, I definitely want to, you know, still throw a dart at the movies that maybe don't go as well known. What do you think is a Michael Mann movie that everyone should see and that probably a lot of people haven't seen?
Right,
and by a lot of people, I mean like now. It doesn't have to be like they saw it back in 1992. Like, no, I meant like now. Because I'm telling you, man, as someone who got into film later, I mean, I was always into film, but I was never into like a Michael Mann type director. Like you said, I was into like the Spielbergs and the Ridley Scotts and the, you know, the Tarantinos. Like those are the kind of directors I kind of focused on when I was like 17, 16, kind of, you know, that was my age when I got into that stuff. But I never really got into this type of movies. Right. Nolan is my Michael Mann. right. You see what I'm saying? And that's a lot of people, to be honest. That's a lot of people my age. That's a lot of people your age.
And I think that's where Michael Mann's legacy, I think, is going to live on, particularly through his influence. And I think, you know, you bring up Nolan. I think Nolan is a direct descendant of Michael Mann in terms of style, in terms of the overt realism. I mean, of course, Nolan does like the sci-fi with the Inception, but Inception is designed and structured like a Michael Mann film with the ensemble, it's
still a heist.
Yeah, the heist.
It's a heist film.
Yeah. And you know, of course, you know, and Heat is directly, I mean, the Dark Knight. Yeah, I mean, that's beat by beat. It's the same, you know, thing. So it's just funny in that way. Like,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that my Michael Mann is Nolan. Yeah. So how would what would you tell a child your age to watch?
Yeah, I mean,
you would say Heat, is that the one you think?
Heat to me is his
it's
best.
Still most popular, right?
Yeah, and
so besides Heat, what would you say?
I mean,
what about Manhunter?
I think Manhunter is one that I think gets people kind of wet, you know, toes wet into the Michael.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, bro.
Jesus Christ, what am I saying? No, not
this
like
ain't that kind of podcast, bro.
I'm sorry, man. We got the Zac Efron cardboard cutout.
Bro, I sat in your seat right now. Obviously, you guys are seeing a split screen for anyone who's watching.
Yeah.
But I sat in that seat when I did the MMA podcast, and it's so distracting, bro. I'm like, that six pack is taunting me.
It's just right here,
it's
man.
just like, yo, look at this. You can never have this. And I'm like staring at it like intensely, like, screw you, Zac Efron. So I get you. I understand why you would say that word.
It's a problem, man. It's a problem. But yeah, no.
I'll take The Insider, man.
I think it's The Insider. Yeah, The Insider.
It's got a name, but it's definitely not one that it's like, of course everyone has seen that. It's still like
it didn't win.
Most
people
people
in
have
the
seen
Oscars. I think if it won more Academy Awards,
sure.
I think more people would like know it as like the Michael Mann film. That's like the Oscar movie.
Sure.
I also think Last of the Mohicans is like not seen enough by a lot of people too.
Sure.
I remember. I haven't seen that one.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
I was gonna say I remember when that one was around and my parents were into that movie because they would always talk about it. But anyways, let's get into let's start out with the Insider, which came out in 1999, which is kind of later on in his career, but still I think it's a fun way. We don't have to go in order. I feel like we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, do whatever you want, man.
Russell Crowe and Al Pacino are going at it throughout this entire movie. That's an interesting duo. That's an interesting kind of head-on competition. What do you think about this film, Ep53, as far as what it's trying to say about, you know, the tobacco companies and exposés on, you know, live television?
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't really seen this movie in a long time, so like, I don't really have like much to say.
Sure.
But I mean, you know, it definitely. I mean, you know, we touched on it a little bit when we talked about Aaron Sorkin and that one movie he has called The Lobbyist, I think it's called.
Sure.
How that movie's all about how I mean, it's a funny kind of romantic comedy, but it's a metaphor for how lobbyists, like how politicians fall in love for these lobbyists, how they fall in depth with this, and I feel like that's what The Insider is, but to a darker, more twisted extent, right? Like how much influence does these big corporations, the big tobacco, have on, you know, people's daily lives? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So
sure.
again, this will have to be one that I like revisit. But.
For sure. Manhunter came out in 1986. Now, as far as stylistically, I think this movie is one of his most stylistically
definitely
stylized, I think is a better word, film. It's interesting now just revisiting these movies and just having a conversation with you to see kind of what he does in his movies is kind of it's usually one male protagonist who has that kind of like vibe that you mentioned, like the macho vibe. But it's also sometimes a antagonist who has that vibe as well, and they're kind of going head to head. He is the prime example of that. But it's interesting to see his movies like The Insider, like Manhunter, that have that kind of vibe going on. But yeah, I mean, this is 1986, man. This movie definitely did not, at least on my end, get the same kind of recognition that movies from the 80s would have gotten. But does this movie have any impact on you whatsoever?
I mean, yeah. I mean, this movie, you know, when I first saw Silence of the Lambs, because when I first saw Silence of the Lambs, I was blown away by that movie because it's based on this character, and the true story behind that movie was more fascinating. But then I didn't realize that Manhunter was actually a prequel to that movie, or not prequel, but it said before, Silence of the Lambs is actually a sequel. And it just blew my mind when I found that out. So for me, watching that movie was really like kind of getting into the idea of what Hannibal Lecter really is. Now, granted, I didn't really fully commit to this movie the same way I committed to Silence of the Lambs, because I don't think it's as compelling. I think doing it a more stylized kind of, because this movie's like essentially a horror movie to a certain extent, whereas I feel like not horror movie, but horror thriller kind of, whereas I feel like the Silence of the Lambs is a little more pulled back, a little more about the actual FBI. It takes a different angle to the story than I think.
I still feel like it has thriller elements in there.
Yeah. No, I think it, but I think that Silence of the Lambs is mainly a thriller, where this one is mostly a, more of a Hitchcockian kind of like look into like the sickness in like this dude's head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not necessarily horror, not necessarily thriller, but just something more off-putting, more disturbing.
Sure.
Whereas I feel like Silence of the Lambs is much more of a police procedural movie that they kind of transform it into, which I think the show Hannibal took more from probably Manhunter in terms of style, in terms of depiction, in terms of the violence than it did from Silence of the Lambs.
Are you a fan of that show?
I've only watched one episode, so
there you go.
But I mean, I'm just talking. I mean, everybody loves that show.
Sure.
But the reasons, at least the impression I get, is the reasons why people love that show is because it's more of a.
Well, kind of going off that point, Luther. I've preached about this show. I've screamed at the top of every hill that I can find in LA about this show. Luther is Manhunter. That's basically what it is. Luther is like a Manhunter like miniseries, or like Silence of the Lambs is also similar to that as well. It's basically the character of Luther, right? John Luther, played by Idris Elba, the great Idris Elba in my opinion, and he's basically getting inside the brains of these super psycho dudes, like psycho dudes. And it's a procedural FBI type stuff, right? But at the same time, it has that combination of like getting inside the mind of a psychopath and a psychopath serial killer. And it's such a great amalgamation of a Manhunter, of a Silence of the Lambs, of like what's that movie called? Seven? It's all those kind of movies that have that vibe of like, we have to catch this psycho killer who enjoys killing people and who does crazy stuff. Because it's not just a killing, right? It's always that little thing that pushes you further, that makes it a little bit more disturbing in movies for some reason. Like, did you see the Netflix show? The Netflix show is another example of it too. What's it? Mindhunter.
Mindhunter, yeah.
Mindhunter. But did you see that show?
Yeah,
by the
I love
way?
that show. Yeah.
But that's very similar to these types of movies where they always take it a step further. It's never like, I like killing people. It's, I like cutting their toes and then putting them in my mouth. And then it's like the most disgusting stuff. And you're just like cringing the whole time as you're watching a show like Mindhunter or a show like Luther, because they're describing these psycho killers who not only kill, but they like deform the bodies or something, or just do something awful to make it so off-putting to the point where you're rooting so hard for for the, you know, the cop or whoever to find him. You're like, please find this guy and put a bullet in his head. At least that's what I think. Or like, I know most people are like, rehabilitate this human being, and I'm like, put a bullet in his head. But Luther and Manhunter, I know, dude, I'm so violent. That's how I am when I watch movies, man. I'm just like, slit his throat. No, I'm just kidding. It's like the most violent things ever. It's like, maybe you should be in this show, Ace.
Yeah.
But either way, it's one of those things where they're great because of those reasons, and because for the past, like, since what's his face, what Charles Manson, yeah, America has been fascinated by these psychos for some weird reason. I find it kind of off-putting as well that there's such a big portion, and I'm including myself, and I'm assuming you too, like these kind of movies where they pursue an antagonist that's so psychotic in nature that we're somehow fascinated by it. Zodiac is another example of it too. And it's interesting to see that kind of vibe and how it's made almost an entire new genre. I mean, it's not a new genre, but almost an entire genre of films and of TV and of movies and of, like, what is it? Freaking Netflix just announced season 2 of that show. What is it?
Mindhunter, yeah.
Not Mindhunter. Making of a Murderer. Making of a Murderer, which is basically what this is, or the podcast Serial, or like all these types of media and content that are just centered around psychotic, murders or psychotic killings, or the psychotic nature of everything that's going on in this world. For some reason, such a big portion of especially American audiences are fascinated by this subject, which again I've said I find it slightly off-putting, but at the same time I can include myself in there because I still feel like Luther is a great show. What's great about Luther too, and I'm going to finish my point by saying, it's the concept of, like, by studying these, and Mindhunter does the same thing, by studying these psychos, you start to slip a little bit, even watching the show, but studying it, right? So if it's an FBI agent or a police guy studying these killers and trying to get inside their brain. So John Luther is like trying to get inside the brain of a psychotic killer. He starts to slip, and he starts to get a little bit of psychotic tendencies to the point where it's like, wait a minute, it's almost like you're watching a reflection, right? Where it starts to become a mirror turning right back at you, and you start to see the same tendencies and the same things that keep coming up in all these killers is coming up in you, right? I don't know. I just think that's dope, and that's why I love the show Luther, and that's why movies like Manhunter and movies that have inspired other movies like Silence of the Lambs as well. Can have such a great impact in our media to the point that we make documentaries about this stuff, and we make like serial documentaries like Making a Murderer and all that stuff. So it's fascinating, but at the same time it's slightly disturbing because you can see how America becomes fascinated with people who are losing their mind, right? Yeah. Especially in this damn city, RB3.
Well, I don't think losing their mind. I think the mind's already...
mind's already lost. Yeah. Especially in this damn city, RB3.
Yeah, in L.A.
Everyone's crazy in L.A.
Yeah, everybody's...
You have no idea how many times I've said that, man. Whether I'm talking to my friends in Phoenix or I'm talking to my parents back home in Phoenix, I'm always like, L.A.'s crazy, Mom. L.A.'s crazy. Because she never understands what... I'm like, this is happening. And she's like, why? And I'm like, L.A.'s crazy, Mom. LA's crazy, because it is.
Perfect way to sum it up.
What's up?
Perfect way to sum it up.
Yeah, it really is. Any last words on these two movies, Manhunter and The Insider? Let's move on to Last of the Mohicans, starring the GOAT, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day.
It's interesting, right? Because you see kind of the actors that Michael Mann wants to choose to perform, and it's people like Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah. Like these, I mean, Chris Hemsworth, the best Chris in Hollywood.
Enough.
But either way, it's actors that have a lot of, prestige and are known for being goats, right? They're definitely goats up there. And for anyone who doesn't know what goat is, I talked to someone who didn't know what that was, and I was like, damn, man. Who are you?
Really? Living under a rock or something? Or?
For real. That's exactly what I thought. And I was slightly hurt by it. I was hurt. I was like, how can you not know what GOAT is? It's like the word I always use. Greatest of all time, or greatests of all time. I can just add an S in there to make it more like, lots of greatests actors, legacy actors that are going to live.
Nah, don't pussy around it, bro. Who's the greatest? The greatest.
The greatest actor of all time?
The number one.
Who's the greatest, RB3? You tell me.
You tell me.
Honestly, it might be Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, it might be Daniel Day-Lewis.
It might be Daniel Day, man. He's especially after seeing when we did PTA, There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did you see? Oh, I was obviously we talked about it beforehand, but did you see SNL over the weekend?
Yeah.
Did you see the Adam Driver sketch about the oil guy? It's literally based on Daniel Day-Lewis's character.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
He's like, we will crush our enemies and we will get all the oil from the ground. But that's exactly what it is, right? He's just a crazy oil guy. But he's a goat, man. He's definitely one of the greatest.
Phantom Thread too.
Phantom Thread. Oh my God, yeah.
It's on HBO too.
It's on HBO now, guys. So you have no excuse not to see that movie. Yeah, he's incredible in that movie as well. And it's funny because when that movie was coming out, I remember you too, because you were hyping it because of PTA, and I was hyping it because I was like, "It's a Daniel Day-Lewis movie. I'm gonna see that."
Yeah.
And it barely made it to come out in the year, right?
Yeah.
Because it was still barely getting made. And I remember watching this movie, and I was so skeptical. I was like, the trailers are all right. Daniel Day-Lewis is going to do his thing. It's going to be all right. And then I walked out and I was like, damn, Daniel, he keeps doing it, man.
He said, damn, Daniel.
I did, yeah. But not in that meme way. Not in the meme way. But either way, I was like, dang, man, this guy still delivers. Every performance is amazing. And guess what, RB3, Last of the Mohicans, he's great in this movie, man. He delivers a fantastic performance. And a lot of it, too, is like, it's obviously based on the super old novel. I think it's like 1868 novel, 1865, something ancient. It's like a super old novel. And to me, that's like ancient. I know, everyone's like, ancient. Yeah. It's based on the novel, and it's based on this time period of conflict between the Native Americans and, the white man taking over of the land. And it's interesting to see. I don't know. It brings up conversation for me personally, on a personal note, about Native Americans in media nowadays, especially now in 2018, but even throughout the 90s and throughout the 2000s so far, the portrayal of Native Americans, and we've gone from movies like, what's that super old movie? Was it Gone with the Wind? What was it?
Oh, which one? The racist one?
No, the one that has.
So the racist one. That's all of. Well,
Pocahontas is definitely gone too.
Which, like, what are you talking about? Like, what kind of?
Is it Gone with the Wind? Where it's the girl who falls in love with the white guy, and she's from a tribe. No, it's definitely not Gone with the Wind.
It's Pocahontas. Yeah.
Is it Pocahontas?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Native American girl?
Yeah.
The animated Disney one?
No, it's not the. Never mind. I'll find it later. But either way, it's the kind of concept of finding. This is how long. This was America's first kind of purging of society, right?
Yeah.
Because we obviously when America was coming over, and then
yes.
Obviously slavery.
Yes,
was the biggest.
Slavery. I mean,
slavery kind of went hand in hand with the growth of America.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other examples. I mean, if you want to go to the roots of what Americans, if you want to go to like back when they were in Europe before they came to America, then there's also more history of imperialism we can dive into.
But I'm saying, like, when they came over to
the mainland, we had all the Native Americans were exiled,
purged lands,
but
purged lands and then use people as labor, called slavery, basically. And that's kind of what went hand in hand with the growth of America. And it's crazy because it's one of those things where it's a recognizable, everyone knows about it type of sin, right? And I use that word very strongly because that's what it is. Tragedy, sin, evil. Of taking people out of their land simply because you want it, right? It's simply because you view them as other or as savage or as inhuman, right? And that's kind of the perception that people have. But it's interesting because this movie has that, different ideology of the Native Americans, but taking that into nowadays and how we view Native Americans in media now, right? I'm not necessarily saying how we view Native Americans, but Native Americans in media. And I was thinking about this too because I saw the Netflix movie Hold the Dark. Did you see that movie? No one's seen it because it's so hard to find on Netflix. I thought it was going to be like on the front page. It's not even on the front page, and it's a brand new movie starring Jeffrey Wright, Alexander Skarsgård, and with the director of Blue Ruin and The Green Room.
Interesting.
And it's like, well, this movie sounds dope, right? Because it's got two dope actors and it's got a really well-known director that's on the come up, and yet it was hard to find, but. It does have that, frozen tundra type feel with the Native Americans. of that area in Alaska, because there's a lot of natives in Alaska.
Yeah.
And the same with Wind River, with the natives in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because these are two recent movies. One of them just came out, and one of them was last year. That have a certain depiction of Native Americans, right? Whether it be, you know, how the movie Wind River ends with, you know, kind of like a statement and kind of like a plea, right? Saying that, you know, there's an epidemic that people aren't talking about within the Native American communities, because a lot of these communities are ignored. And it stems from movies like The Last of the Mohicans, where you see the treatment that the Native Americans received, to the point that they were very hostile. The Revenant is another movie that talks about the hostility of Native Americans. Obviously, a lot of people saw it in an incorrect manner, where they felt like it was incorrectly depicting Native Americans. But yeah, Last of the Mohicans, man. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, I mean, this is another example of the white savior movie, though, right? I mean, is that what they say about this one?
I like how you're asking me.
I mean, I haven't seen it, so I mean,
oh, dang it, man. I don't know. I don't know if they say it for this one. I mean, obviously it stars a white protagonist, but I don't know if it's necessarily the white savior movie. But it does have certain elements of like a Last Samurai. The poster is definitely very much Last Samurai.
Oh, okay, all right, for sure.
But it's always a question that I feel like it's interesting, because it's people want to paint a brush nowadays when it comes to diversity, and people want to paint a brush when it comes to representation of different groups of people. But every group of people is different, man. So I always find it fascinating. I always find it interesting what types of Native Americans we see on screen, what types of Mexicans we see on screen, what types of black people we see on screen, right? Not just having diversity for diversity purposes, but actually having a significant representation and a significant purpose for the diverse people, right? For the people that you're trying to represent. That's why I'm very vocal about the type of diversity we see. Is like, yo, a ton of Mexicans, and they're all like cartel people. And it's like, yo, and then it's the next, new movie starring a bunch of Mexicans, and they're all Mexican thugs. And I'm like, all right, this is the next movie. It's another Mexican thug, and thug number 2, thug number 3, number 4. And I'm like, bro, this is like every movie. And I get it, because I like some of the content. Like Narcos is a perfect example of it, where I actually like Narcos, but Narcos is like, whew, because I'm Colombian and I'm Mexican, and Narcos talks about like Colombians and Mexicans, but I want to see a different type of representation. We've seen certain types of representations in media of other groups of people. I want to see a different type, and that's why the Native Americans ones are interesting for me. Westworld is another example of a that depicts Native Americans.
Yeah, I mean they're robots though.
No, but it's talking about culture though. It's talking about what they're doing in the year 2050 is what they did in 1620 or something like that. Yeah. Back, the purging of the lands, the treating of people like they're not people, because that's how they viewed Native Americans, as not people, as if they were robots, right? Yeah. That's kind of the whole analogy that they have going on in Westworld.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah. Hey, why didn't you bring this up in the Westworld episode, man? Jesus Christ, bro. That was like 5 episodes ago, dog. What the fuck?
Hey, man, you had a mic drop moment. I needed a mic drop moment. I'm trying to keep up with you, man. In 1995 was the release of Michael Mann's probably biggest film, and that is Heat. RB3.
Heat. Sorry, I just pointed all into your camera view. I didn't mean to do
it's all good. And Heat is about Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh.
Hey, LeBron in LA, baby.
Boo. You can just add the booze in post right now. RB3 added the booze.
No booze. I
was booing on Sunday for that preseason game, bro. And I texted you. I was like, the trash, bro, trash.
Hey, bro. Hey, it's just preseason, dog. We're going to pick up the win next time around. So.
Dang, man.
We're still getting the team acclimated. I
still think we might be better than you guys.
Nah, man. All right. Now Ace
DeAndre Ayton dropped 25 points, 13 rebounds. Did you see that?
Which way is Ace on the camera?
Come on, man.
This way? Either way, like that's crazy, bro.
Come on, DeAndre Ayton, bro. You see that performance? You see that?
Bro, you tripping, dog. See, LeBron, he just got into LA.
Yeah.
All right. Kobe wasn't hot on this first preseason game. All right. You gotta give him a little time, bro.
All right.
Give him a little time.
Either way, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino.
Yes. The long-awaited.
Val Kilmer, John Voight,
Tom
Sizemore. I mean, these are well known. The Allstate homie.
Yeah. Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, dude. Natalie Portman. You know what's funny on the Schmodown when I watch it sometimes? They have the Natalie. One time they had the Natalie Portman category. I freaked out, bro. I freaked out. You know how Perry and Cody just did the Jurassic Park challenge, the Jurassic Park trivia challenge.
Yeah,
I was like, bro, if they had like a Natalie Portman trivia challenge, bro, I'm there, man. Yeah, I think that's the one. Everyone's like, well, which one can you do? And I'm like, Game of Thrones, Star Wars. I'd be pretty good in Star Wars. I'd be pretty good in MCU. Natalie Portman, oh, the king, the Schmodown Natalie Portman champion, right here.
Hey.
So if they ever do it, I'm their man because Natalie is a beast, and obviously she's like 12 in this movie.
Yeah.
But either way, she's been acting forever, man.
She has,
and she doesn't just act, like even as like a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I mean this is a serious role.
Yeah, she's like breaking down and crying and stuff.
She's committing suicide and shit. Yo, man, for
like all her roles are like deep as hell, and you're like, damn, girl, you 12.
Chill out.
Yeah.
Yo.
What's she's Leon the Professional? She goes hard in that too.
She's murdering folks,
like smoking,
avenging her parents
at like 11 years old. She's like looking at Gary Oldman, and she's like, "What you doing, brah? What you want, brah? I can keep up with you, man." It's like, it's Gary Oldman, bro.
Yeah, nah, that's
Natalie Portman is a goat, bro.
Hey, that's why. Hey, listen, that's why she went to Harvard, bro. Like
that's true.
She matured very quickly.
Yeah. And have you seen the SNL Natalie Portman rap? When I went to Harvard, I smoke weed every day. You've never seen a rap?
I haven't seen that. No.
Dude, let me tell you right now, bro. And I'm gonna say it right here on the Meaning of Podcast. Natalie Portman is a better rapper than a lot of rappers right now. And I 100%. I'm saying that as a hip hop fan.
She better than Eminem?
No, of course not, man.
I think so.
What?
The way the bars you just give me sound better than anything Eminem.
It's dope. It's dope. I'm telling you, man, she's dope at rapping. She's actually really good. But anyways, enough about Natalie Portman.
Cardi B or Natalie Portman?
Bro, you're telling me Natalie Portman by a mile, bro.
Whoa.
Natalie Portman by a mile, bro.
All right. Natalie Portman versus Eminem. Who's winning that beef?
I told you, Eminem, bro.
Nah, man. Eminem has made hit record in 2 years.
She went to school with Jared Kushner?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, she was friends with Kushner.
She was. She also was. She wasn't friends with Mark Zuckerberg, but she was at Harvard at the same time that Mark Zuckerberg was. They mentioned that in The Social Network.
That's right. Yeah, and not just that, but the fact that I had like 4 posters of her in my bedroom when I was a kid, and that's not a joke. That's real. Yeah, she was my first. Yeah. She was my first, man. Natalie Portman was my first.
Is that her name? Padme, right?
Huh? Yeah. Cool, Padme.
Cool. Got a name right. Anyway, Heat.
Yeah. Let's talk about Heat. Obviously, this movie is, like you said before, a legacy type movie that inspired other movies like The Dark Knight, very much so. But again, it's about or like the freaking town. The town is like basically Heat as well. You know, do you feel me on that too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I was like, was RB3 disagreeing with me?
No, I agree.
I think the town was very much inspired by Heat.
Yeah.
Talking about the high level, heist films where it's not just a heist, but it's like a high level, top notch homies type heist, where these guys heist like the top of the top.
Professionals. Yeah, they're like professionals, and it takes the heist genre outside of being the Rat Pack, Ocean's 11 type. You know what I mean? To actually elevating it to stakes, to dramatic emphasis. It pays homage to the classic Warner Brothers like gangster movies from like 1930s and 40s, while also modernizing it and taking a postmodern look and deconstruction of what it means. And I think, and when I say Michael Mann, a lot of his movies are about masculinity. What I meant to say and what I should say is it's about the deconstruction of masculinity, right? What pushes a man to a point of himself breaking out of himself and thinking about the people who he cares about. You know what I mean? Does when will Al Pacino stop working so hard to care for his wife and his stepdaughter to the point where his stepdaughter literally is like in a bathtub soaking in blood, and he doesn't, he's not cognizant of that because he's so focused on catching Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro's character, who is this straight up, you know, clean cut, never fails gangster dude. As soon as a love interest is introduced into his life, everything just starts falling apart for him, right? Like, and it's just things like that. So it's like it's the deconstruction. I think this movie really goes into it deep. So I'm with it.
Super deep. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially about the marriage of these two people, or about the choice of them picking a family or picking the lifestyle that they chose, right? That's essentially the whole point of the movie, especially towards the end, where we realize what Robert De Niro's character's decision is, and he's like, "Peace, girl," and she's like, "Whoa, wait, where are you going?" And then he like quickly made a decision. He says this line like 3 times in the movie, but it's the line of like, "Don't get attached to anyone because at a moment's notice," or something like that.
Yeah, you have to split.
You have to get up and run, or get up and go.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact quote. One of the greatest quotes, though.
And he says it like 3 times in the movie, and that's kind of the whole theme of the movie. Basically, it's the deciding if you want to pick your career, your lifestyle, your power, or your family, right? Because those two things don't necessarily always go hand in hand. And we see how 2 alpha males like Al Pacino and like Robert De Niro, because they're alpha males because they're leading their own teams, right? I mean, think about it. Al Pacino's got his gang. Robert De Niro's got his gang. I mean, there are 2 gangs going at it. Obviously, one of them is the police and one of them is, you know, criminals. But either way, there are 2 gangs, and they have gang leaders. You know, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, and they see each other as like, and the audience. What's great is not just how they see each other, but how the audience sees them. They see them as like equals, where obviously one of them is killing people and doing messed up shit, and the other one is trying to stop that. But at the same time, there's a little part of you, Ep53, that's rooting for Robert De Niro and his crew, and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, man. I mean, these guys are kind of cool. Yeah, I kind of want them to win too.
Yeah, I mean, they're exact foils. You know what I mean? Like
like they got families too. They got lifestyles.
Well, I mean, that's where I was going to go too. I think, you know, Al Pacino's character is the good guy with the bad habits, and Robert De Niro's character is the bad guy with the good life, the good habits. You know, but then, you know, we are able to distinguish who's good and who's bad in the story by what choices they make. You know, through, you know, when we see the Allstate guy. I really feel bad for like not knowing his name, but like when we see him making the choice between staying at the good restaurant job and keeping his head up, not a good restaurant job, it's a piece of shit job.
It's a shit job, but it's keeping it straight and narrow. Versus having a high paying, you know, respectful job where they respect you, but it's a criminal job.
Right, but then like his family, you know, he's putting his family at stake, right? Essentially, like he's putting himself at stake, losing his family again because he just got out of prison.
Yeah, Dennis Haysbert.
Dennis Haysbert. Yeah, great legend, Dennis Haysbert.
Yeah.
If you strip that back, if you strip out his family out of the equation, he wouldn't even hesitate to make the decision to go back to the criminal lifestyle anyway. But it's always the people who choose the life of crime over the life of their family and the people who they care about are always the bad guys in this story. The Val Kilmer's, and they all face the consequences to some extent too, for making that choice. Whereas Al Pacino, throughout this entire story, he's neglecting his family as well, just the same way that, you know, the Robert De Niro and all these other characters on the bad side are. But then when he neglects his family, it leads to an incident where he has to force in and take a minute to like just give it all up, to finally have that moment of realization and to finally, you know, catch our main guy here. So
yeah, it's that decision making factor, right? Making the decision that you feel would be the correct decision during a life or death situation, right? Even if it's selfish or if it's something that you feel like it's not selfish, right? I kind of like that concept, the concept of like saying, is it selfish if I'm neglecting my family to save a city? And I'm putting it in quotes because, you know, that's the whole Batman thing, save a city. Or is it selfish of me to choose the whole save a city aspect? Because in reality, I'm not necessarily trying to save a city. I'm trying to save my name, and I'm trying to save what I'm trying to do, right? It's the idea of power chasing and how 2 of them are both power chasers. Robert De Niro is chasing the power of a criminal and being a crime boss and a gangster. And Al Pacino's, you know, trying to be a powerful guy too, and trying to be, you know, law and maker and executioner, basically, by taking down these guys and making those powerful decisions. Because either way, they're chasing power, but at the same time, is chasing power more selfish or less selfish than picking your family? And maybe that's selfish as well, right? It's the whole like concept of like, if you have to kill one person to save 20, but that one person you have to kill is your family or your wife or whatever, you know, which one is the most selfish decision, right? And it's obviously a lot of people might disagree with me by saying this stuff, but it's a lot tougher than, you know, many people might think, because just because you're doing something that's abiding by the law doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best or the correct or the right decision. That's my opinion. It's not necessarily the right decision to neglect your family, basically.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people might say, well, you have to pick the city because the city is maybe. I don't know. It's a tougher decision than
it's
people
relative,
might think.
yeah. It's relative to the person too. What's most important to them at that moment, you know, or what's most important to the person who's being affected in that moment, you know, who yeah, if your family's in need of something, you know, if you're not going to be there for your family, then what, you know, then what's worth fighting for to begin with? You know, that's the question I think that's worth being asked here. But yeah, no, to me, that's what makes Heat, to me, the greatest crime movie of all time.
Really?
I've said it.
Wow.
That's my opinion.
Better than like Goodfellas and Godfather and Scarface and dang.
Yeah,
really.
For me,
better than The Dark Knight, bruh.
Now, you complicated things a little bit by throwing in Godfather in there, because now I'm a little I'm reconsidering a little bit. But what I will say is that as a modern crime movie, this movie is beyond is to me Heat is timeless in the sense of how much of an influence it's had on modern cinema. And how much, of course, is influenced by The Godfather, but how much of his hyper-violence and how much of his realism kind of created a lane of his own, you know? Like, when they have the big highway shootout scene, not highway shootout, but like the whole...
Bank scene.
Bank scene that turns into a shootout on the highway.
That scene's dope.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And you know, I think this, particularly the sound, I mean, a lot of people talk about the sound design in that scene. That sound design has been so influential because they didn't do any Foley, they didn't do any like post-production audio. They just used the real sound effects that recorded on the day of the echoing, you know, firing of blanks. You know what I mean? To give it a more hollow, again, more ethereal kind of feeling. So again, that's something that, you know, we could credit Michael Mann for kind of putting that idea into filmmaking. Now we see a lot of filmmakers and a lot of sound designers imitating that effect of the echoey, hollowy gunshots to make you feel like they're coming from everywhere, you know what I mean? So, I mean, this movie did that. It just influences so much. You know, it's hard not to call this the greatest crime movie, to me at least, when you look at the trajectory that it took crime movies and also how much of an homage it pays to its past and its predecessors, and kind of evaluates and deconstructs that to a certain amount too. So
yeah, it's interesting. Let's talk about that scene, because I really do think that scene, you're right, it has a lot of impact in films nowadays. Not just because of the sound, like you said before, but also because it just has that feeling. And it's also the length of it and the way it's cut that makes it feel like, yo, this is like, ugh, it's weighing down on you. You're just like, oh my God, who's going to die? Who's not going to die? Like, at any moment, anyone can die, and it's bullets flying everywhere. It feels so like painful, and it feels like this isn't just some glamorous, like super cool, like gung fu type shit where they're spinning shit. No, they're just like really trying to shoot you and kill you and take you down, and they have the biggest weaponry to do it, man. That's the thing, right? Because nowadays we're having so much discussions on the types of weapons that I was thinking that throughout the movie. I can't lie, throughout that scene when I was rewatching this, because it's on Netflix. Everyone check it out. It's on Netflix.
Hey.
But at the same time, I was thinking about that. I was just like, the fact that these guys can just bring out these guns, because they can just buy this shit at like a friggin' sporting goods store, where it's just like freaking missiles, man. Those guns are huge, like automatic weapons, and those are like big ass bullets too. Which, you know, for anyone who knows a little bit about guns, it's like the bullet size is so huge too, because it's not just projection, but it's how much it can tear through flesh, right? Stopping power. Yeah. And those guns have it, right? Those are M16s, which are military rifles that literally the U.S. Army has. So it's one of those things where you're watching that scene and you're like, dang, these guys don't even just have Uzis, bro. They're popping out with M16s, man. Yeah. And obviously, professionals. Yeah. And then the police department has the freaking. I think he has an AK-74. I think Al Pacino has an AK-74 in the movie.
Sure, I don't know anything about that. So.
Here I am pulling out my gun stuff, bro.
Yeah, Jesus, man, you know this guy's from Arizona.
Yes, and then freaking the other cop has a 12 gauge, which is also kind of interesting, right? Because it's that concept of like everyone has their own style of weaponry. What?
No, it's just funny. Like whenever they cut to him back, he's just like,
yeah. He's like, they give you guys the freaking AKs. Why can't you give me an AK,
he's
bro?
Just going
I'm just like, shit. They gave me the shotgun, and you guys got AKs, bro. Yeah, that's such a good point, man. And now the replacement of that is the AR-15 nowadays. AR-15 is money, bro. For anyone who doesn't think that, they're stupid. It's money. No, because everyone's like, oh, AR-15 is not even that great. Bullshit. AR-15 is like, everyone wants a friggin' AR-15. It's like a money fucking gun. Because it has so much stopping power, speed, easeability of use. Like, that's such a cool, like, everyone wants this weapon, right? Even if you're like just an average, you know, shooting fan. You want to have that gun. And that's like the most, you know, hype gun nowadays. But back in this time, it's like M16 is like super, you know, popular. But yeah, man, that scene is like you feel the bullets. You feel like if I were to be in this situation and I were just a bystander, I would be pooping my pants. I would be shitting myself because these guns will not mess around. And if I just get up at any moment, it'll kill me. And that's why it's so awful, but it's supposed to feel awful because that's that situation. That's how I would feel. It would feel awful to be in that situation. But yeah, overall, the movie's great. I mean, it really is a cat and mouse game between Al Pacino and Robert De Niro's gangs, going at it, trying to pick each other off, and trying to get inside each other's minds, and trying to see what decisions.
And you know, and again, you go back to the Manhunter thing of trying to get inside the mind of these people. This movie is all about Al Pacino trying to punch through the mind of Robert De Niro, but just not getting it, just not understanding it. But then once he realizes, you know. De Niro, you know, when he realizes the De Niro character doesn't leave any loose ends, when he's gonna go back for the one homie. And look, like I said, all of the times in this movie where the bad guy decides to, instead of choosing the family, instead chooses the crime, the lifestyle, he almost got off scot clean, bro. Almost. Him and his girl could have went and traveled the world, but he had to just kill that one homie for doing what he did. You know what I mean? Like, just had to. It's
such a bad decision. He made two bad decisions. One of them was that, and one of them was earlier in the movie when he could have killed him, and he was freaking looking at the cop car.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, at least keep your eyes on the ground and have your homie look at the cop car.
Yeah.
First, I was like, bro, you're supposed to be like pro, and he lets the guy run away, and he's like, where'd he go? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Dude, come on. Yeah. But yeah, and the irony that decision kind of haunted him to the point where he's like, I have to kill this guy, dude. I gotta do it. Yeah. Even if I'm probably gonna get caught or killed in the action of killing him. So it really is a long ass movie, and it really is this movie's long too, man.
Yeah.
This movie's
like classic.
3 hours.
Classic.
But yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic movie.
Worth every second of the credits too. Sit through them goddamn credits, people.
Yeah. And sit through the Robert De Niro wife scenes too. Where he's yelling at the guy. He's hot! Get out my house! Hot! I can't do the Al Pacino.
Hot! Give me all you got!
Is that what you're doing?
She got a fat ass!
Yeah. And your head's all the way up.
Your head's all the way in there.
Yeah, dude. He goes from like literally 0 to 100.
Yeah,
because he's like, all the way. It just goes like all the way his range of voice. Where Al Pacino is like my height, right?
Yeah.
Or like maybe even like he's my height.
Yeah, probably.
But at the same time, he scares the shit out of these homies in the movie.
Yeah,
just because his voice is so like. You're like, yo, this guy can kill you. And it's like, bro, this homie's like 5'7".
Yeah.
He can still kill you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, shout out to Al Pacino.
His best performance.
Let's get over to Ali. This movie I remember this movie when it came out because it was getting a lot of award buzz. And it stars Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. No, I'm kidding. She's in it for a little bit. But it stars Will Smith as Cassius Clay, Cassius X, Muhammad Ali. It stars Jamie Foxx, John Voight's in it as well. Jeffrey Wright, the homie, is in it. That's my homie. And it tries to follow a certain period of Ali's life, right? It's his first time winning the heavyweight championship at 22 years old against, I forget his name. I'm a boxing fan, so I should know that. But and he wins the championship, and then it's the whole concept of, how he was protesting this. He was part of he was part of the civil rights movement too.
Yeah.
That was a huge portion of it, right? Because the civil rights movement, and he was a friend of Malcolm X, like a real life friend of Malcolm X.
Well, him and Malcolm, they both kind of put each other on different paths, right? I mean, we meet Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X as well too, and they converge, and it's that Muslim brotherhood that really
Muslim Black Brotherhood.
Yeah, that really united these brothers. And a lot of people don't understand the connection between Africans and Muslims, but Islam is the biggest religion in Africa. So when African Americans, especially during this time, reconnected with their Islam roots, is so they could feel more connected to their homeland, to their country, to where they identify as, instead of what the oppression that America is put under. So that's why you see him turn from like Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, because he feels more identifiable. He feels more within his own identity as a Black person in America, as an African American in America, by his religious and cultural roots. Yeah,
that's an interesting point, right? It's kind of the whole concept of the fact that Christianity and the Holy Bible were used to persecute a lot of Africans as slaves, right? Because that's
why you see a lot of people changing their where you see a lot of people who want to change their names, saying they're changing their slave names to names that they are naming themselves. So more power to the people who are owning up to their heritage and their culture, because honestly, when we're talking about people, African Americans and Black people, our people in this country, is not even, the discussion is never going to be fully fair, right? No matter where the goalpost is going to be, the goalpost is always going to be moved in this direction or in that direction. So with Muhammad Ali, he was a dude who was pro-Black, pro-civil rights, pro-Malcolm X, pro Black identity. So when he said he didn't want to serve in the Vietnam War, that created such a dividing line within sports, such a divide in people and their political beliefs. It's the same way we see with Colin Kaepernick now. You know what I mean? Like how, but he was simply refused to go to war. Muhammad Ali, he refused to go to war. He dodged draft because that's his way of peacefully protesting the war. Yeah. He's not going out there violently he's not going out there rioting or anything like that. But he chooses to instead opt out of the Vietnam War, a war that we shouldn't have even been in the first place. It's an illegal war to begin with. So the fact that he woke up to that and saw that and acknowledged that and was like, no, I don't want to do that. He famously said, "Ain't no Vietnamese kill no niggas," or some shit like that.
He said, "Ain't no Viet Cong call me the N-word."
Yeah, ain't no Viet. Yeah, ain't no Viet Cong call me a nigga. Yeah, so because it's true. Like what the actual, and especially if a Black person who didn't even choose to come to America, right? Why are we forced to fight their wars? But for the lack of for less opportunities that were given in this country otherwise.
Sure.
So you know, Muhammad Ali was far ahead of his time in proclaiming that, especially in major sports and major athletics.
Yeah.
And I think after that, we started to see a movement in athletes becoming more political. We saw in the 1968 Olympics, which was where homie held up the Black Power fist. You see it all across the world and all across the spectrum, and Muhammad Ali was instrumental in that. I think this movie does a good job in demonstrating how that affected him and how that whole sting in jail was just so unfortunate and really, I don't know, man.
Well, not just that, but the fact that it's interesting because if you put this during this time period, what the narrative created around Muhammad Ali, similar to the narrative we have now around Kaepernick, was just completely misused and misframed. Where it wasn't that he was peacefully protesting the Vietnam War; it was that he was a coward. It was that he didn't want to fight for his country. It was that he hated the troops. Oh, Muhammad Ali hates the troops. He hates he hates the U.S. people who are, you know, the strong American young men who are, you know, getting killed in war. Muhammad Ali hates them, and Muhammad Ali is a coward because he doesn't want to fight for his country. That was the narrative created around him, right? Similar to the narrative created around, you know, Colin Kaepernick being twisted into him saying that, you know, Colin Kaepernick hates America. He hates the troops, and it's like that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's never said that. Similar to Ali. Ali never said anything against, you know, the troops or wasn't saying, you know, like, oh, you know, this is stupid and you guys suck for doing this. It was mainly him choosing not to do it because he didn't feel like that was the right decision, and him making his own decision and saying, you can't force me to do something, right? If you want to do it, that's you, that's cool, but you can't force me to do it. And that was the idea going all around it. And how the U.S. government kind of turned that and kind of made him a target and literally targeted him, right? Using the FBI and using the forces that they had during that time period to target people like Ali.
That's how they targeted Martin Luther King.
Malcolm X, too.
Malcolm X, that's how they targeted people. And they would send, you know, death threats and false accusations and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, again, back in the 1960s, this was all the era of corruption, right? I mean, you know, Kennedy was getting into office, so, you know, people thought things were looking better back in the early 60s. But, you know, once Vietnam kicked in, we had, you know, Nixon in office and all of this really negative, nasty politics. And it just created a general distrust amongst the American people, especially amongst Black people and against all marginalized groups, really. But particularly, you know, that's why we saw a civil rights revolution. It just, you know, outside of the but outside of the politics, it was also the mass discrimination that was happening during that time too. And you see Ali facing that a little bit in this movie as well, like early on. But then you see when he becomes the boxer, nobody sees him as Black no more, right? Like everybody just sees him as, oh, Muhammad Ali, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's how it is for, I mean, that's what happened to OJ. Yeah, OJ just completely ditched Black people because as soon as you know he got some assimilation and some acceptance from the fair skin, he turned to them immediately. But you know that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's that OJ documentary, man. It's so good because it mentions Ali and it mentions Ali, yeah, and it mentions Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and how, you know...
See, Ali's almost like the opposite of...
how like OJ made like an actual decision to not partake in this and not want to participate in any way. Right. The whole famous line that OJ would say throughout that documentary and that they kept mentioning it was, you know, I'm not Black, I'm OJ. And that whole concept of like how he wasn't identifying with Black anymore.
And that was right when Ali was at the heat of facing this. And, you know, to me, you know, it's funny that you mentioned how everybody called him a coward, everybody called him weak. Yeah. Tell me any of those people who had that criticism, have they ever spent a day in jail, especially for something that they believe is right for people around them? It's crazy to me that you could portray this image of Muhammad Ali as this cowardly boxer who doesn't want to fight in a war, but in reality, he's doing way more justice for humanity than the rest of any of you could say. So I don't know. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, so and I like how this movie kind of touches upon the political aspects, not just on the obvious side, right, which is the U.S. government kind of going after these people, but also the religious side of it, because I really do feel like this is what always happens when it comes to representation of religion in films, and always what happens in religion in real life. It's the concept of like, I identify as a Christian, and yet sometimes the church or other people of the church or other people who use that same word will twist it and kind of make up their own interpretation and kind of denounce people because they feel like, you're not Christian, or I'm the real Christian, or the real aspect, right? And Ali was facing that with the Muslim Brotherhood, right? Where the whole they denounced Malcolm X and they denounced Ali because he was going too far, going too much, and when the homie Muhammad comes in. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're welcome back to Muslimness. Welcome back to the Muslim. And he's like, bro, I've been Muslim, bro. And he literally says it in the movie. He's like,
oh, yeah, Farrakhan, you mean?
Yeah.
Him. Yeah.
And he's like, bro, I've been Muslim. You know, like, I never stopped being Muslim just because you denounced me, right?
Right.
It's the political aspects of the churches, of the even the Muslim and the Christian. Both sides were kind of just picking and choosing what they wanted to do and playing the political game as well, because that's what they were doing. And it's that concept of, like, identifying yourself through your faith yourself. Whether I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian, I am what I choose to be and not what you say I am. Even if you're the great bishop whatever, or the great pastor whatever, or, you know, Elijah Muhammad, like whoever you are, you don't dictate what my faith is just because you don't approve of what I'm saying or what I'm doing. My decisions are based between me and God, or me and Allah, whatever you want to say. And I love that, because that's how I personally identify too. Obviously I go to church, but it's that concept of, like, identifying yourself by the decisions you make with your creator, not with political pastors or political bishops and preachers who want to politicize your beliefs and want to make that some sort of target, or want to make some sort of statement with you, and how they kind of bully and how they kind of twist what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do. And that's what they did with Ali. That's what they did with Malcolm X. And that's what
they killed Malcolm X.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they fucking murdered him.
Yeah, they murdered him. But that's what it's that idea of how the two, and I mentioned this during the Spike Lee episode, the two most impactful leaders within the African American community of all time are the two most religious dudes ever. Was guys were religious as hell. You know, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, both in their own religion. And yet there was a lot of Christians who denounced Malcolm X. Martin Luther King, a lot of white Christians, and a lot of Muslims who denounced Malcolm X, because it's the concept of, like, oh, not my God, you know. And it's realizing that the way they view God, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, is peace and justice and freedom and liberty and the ability to choose and the ability to make your own decision and having a mind of your own, not being dictated by other people. That's literally what's, you know, being taught to them. And the irony that the same people who are teaching them this stuff are now kind of twisting on them and kind of turning their back on them. So I like how that movie kind of touched upon it too, and how he responds. He's like, bro, I've been Muslim, you know, like, where you been? Because I really do feel like that's a powerful moment for Ali as well, is where he never lost his faith. Even when his faith lost him, he never lost his faith. And that's very powerful. I love the scenes too when he's in Africa.
Yeah.
And when he does Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman, who's huge. Yeah. And then back then, George Foreman was like the strongest puncher ever. And it's fun following this movie and rewatching this movie as a boxing fan, because I've been following boxing for years and kind of seeing like where these guys lie in the rankings of GOATs as far as greatest boxer of all time. Because as you well know, Ali is, you know, he would call himself the GOAT. Yeah. The greatest of all time.
Well, and that's like a honey bun, sting like a bee.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it comes from, too. That word, my favorite word, Ep53, GOAT, kind of comes from Ali. Yeah. You know, the greatest of all time, because he would say that. Greatest of all time.
Yeah. He's a shit talker, man.
Yeah, he was a shit talker. Yeah. And it's, you know what's funny? That's kind of what saved him, right? Yeah. The irony that what people criticized him for is what saved him. It's the idea of, like, everyone was turning their back on him. Everyone was saying, you can't fight again, you can't fight again, you can't. And he's like, oh, really? I'm going to get on TV and everyone's going to be screaming my name because I'm so damn entertaining when I get on the mic. Because he doesn't even need to be in a ring. He just gets on the mic and he just spits game and he spits fire. And you're like, bro, we need to give this guy a contract because people will pay to see this guy. And it's that idea of, like, his big mouth got him in trouble, but his big mouth also saved his life, and as far as financially, obviously. Right. Because he would just talk shit, and everyone was like, all right, let's give this guy a shot. Let's let him fight, because he's talked such a big game. So let's let him fight. And the fact that he had a relationship with Joe Louis, too, was really cool. I just thought that was a fun moment, and that's actually kind of true. That the fact that they did have some sort of friendship going on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I looked that up because I was like, is this true? Because they had that kind of relationship going on where it's like this is mutually beneficial, and that's fights nowadays, bro. Freaking Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, bro. Yeah. Everyone was like, do they really hate each other? Of course, bro. Afterwards, they're just like giving each other high fives. It's mutually beneficial, man.
Yeah.
It's the money game. That's what they're playing.
Yeah.
The whole shit talking, and it's like I'm better than you. I'm better than you. It's like they're doing it for the money. They're doing it because they know that it's like you're getting 150 mil. I'm getting 150 mil. We're good. You know, let's do this again. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the idea that the relationship that Muhammad Ali had with Joe Louis. So I thought it was cool how they had that one scene in the movie where they had that moment. Where it's like, man, I'm gonna kick your ass. It's like, all right, let's do it, man. For real, let's sign the contract. So, and the fact that they had freaking Don King, bro. Don King is in this movie.
Yeah. Everybody, man.
The way he acts in this movie is so clutch, bro. I love when he's what does he say during the concert and when they're talking about Foreman? Did you rewatch this movie?
I didn't get a chance.
I was gonna say if you can help me with this line, but where he's like, I forget what he says. He's like, Muhammad, my black brother that I love so much. And he just says it and he just goes off for like 5 minutes. He's like, I'm with you to the end, my brother. And I love it. I was like, bro, that's Don King.
It's hot. And Will Smith in this movie.
Huh?
Will Smith in this movie.
I was gonna say, let's before we move on, Will Smith, man. The fact that he chose Will Smith during this time, Will wasn't known for having these, dramatic Oscar-worthy roles. He was still kind of, Wild Wild West, Will Smith type, Men in Black type.
I was gonna say, you always refer to him as Wild Wild West.
That's because that's my time. That's my era. Is Wild Wild West. Your era is more like Men in Black.
Yeah, didn't they come out didn't Men in Black come out before?
No, it didn't. It came out afterwards.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, Wild Wild West was 1998 or 99. But Men in Black was like 2002, 2001?
The first Men in Black?
2000? Yeah.
The first Men in Black was 90s.
Are you sure?
I'm like 90% sure.
All right, I'm going to look this up right now. But either way, the fact that he wasn't known for these dramatic roles, the fact that he was actually, 1997, you're right. Yeah. Men in Black 2 was 2002.
Okay.
But still, he was the Will Smith, Men in Black, Independence Day. Wild Wild West, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah. He wasn't like the dramatic actor that
Oh, this was the first one.
This was the first one. Yeah. And he got an Oscar nomination for this, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Deservingly so. There's a great series that I think Vanity Fair does. It might be Vanity Fair. It might be another channel. I don't know. But they interview like a dialect coach who like helps actors with like accents. And he breaks down like 58 of like the best.
Oh, yeah. I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like one of them was Will Smith in his movie. And he highly complimented how true to the impersonation, like to the voice level that Will Smith committed to imitating the voice of Muhammad Ali. So the attention to detail.
It's tough to do that stuff, man. What do you think of what's his name as Malcolm X in this movie too?
Who is Malcolm X in?
I forget. But homie, he looks like Malcolm X, man.
Yeah.
He really looks like Malcolm X. I was gonna say he looks like Malcolm X more than Denzel looked like Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Malcolm X.
That's true. I mean, I thought he was. I can't remember the actor off the top of my head.
I'm gonna look it up right now. But at the same, Mario Van Peebles.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people don't recall, and obviously this is me. A lot of people don't recall.
Son of Melvin Van Peebles, by the way.
What's up?
Son of Melvin Van Peebles.
Oh, there you go. But the fact that Malcolm X was like, homie had red hair and he was light skinned as F, bro. Yeah. Like he was a light skinned brother, and the fact that he had like red hair too and stuff, where that's Malcolm X. Like that's how he looked, and the fact that they got that look, I was like, yo, he has the hair and he's got the look and he's got the glasses. Like he really looked like Malcolm X in this movie. I was like, yo, that's crazy. Because that's the one thing that I remember rewatching Malcolm X for the Spike Lee episode. I was like, oh, kind of. He kind of got it with the Malcolm X look. But yeah, I still think for the short time he was in this movie, he did a good job as Malcolm X. And the fact that the same death scene was almost straight out of the Spike Lee movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought the same thing or not.
Yeah. I mean, he only died in one way, so.
That's true, but like, I feel like they used the same stage and the same chairs. And I was like, didn't they just get this from the Spike Lee movie? I feel like they almost like used the same
That wouldn't have been crazy if Denzel like showed up as Malcolm X in this
that
movie.
would it's like in the same universe.
Yeah. That would be mad crazy.
The historical connected universe.
Yeah. And they just used the clip from Malcolm X,
and then
when he dies,
Rami Malek comes out as freaking
Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury.
Oh, Jesus.
And then Taron Egerton comes out, and he's like coming out as what's his face?
Elton John.
Elton John.
Nah, man, they gotta have him and Young Thug do a collaboration together. What's his name? Taron
Egerton. Yeah.
Taron Egerton hop into the studio with Young Thug. Man.
Yeah.
Let's get that Rocket Man song going.
Let's move on to.
'Cause I'm high like a rocket man.
There you go, man.
Young Thug, baby.
Hey, you gotta get that track, bro. Let's move on to Collateral, starring Jamie Foxx again. Yeah, because Jamie Foxx is also in Ali.
Ali, yeah.
And he really does. This is when Jamie Foxx was kind of coming into his own as Mr. Jamie Foxx acting man.
Well, this was this came out the same year that Ray came out, which
oh, that's right.
And this was the first. I don't know if it was the first time, but it's one of the notable times that an actor was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for separate movies in separate categories. He was nominated and won for Best Leading Actor for Ray. Nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Collateral.
Dang, man. Yeah. Jamie Foxx, bro. What do you think of Jamie Foxx in this movie?
He's great. I mean, there's a different part than wherever usually used to see him play. He's usually a smooth, fast-talking, comedic, smooth guy. But in this movie, he's the nerdy, kind of reserved, character who has to come into his own to a certain extent. It's like his hero journey story.
Yeah,
so,
and he's kind of like the simple working blue collar guy.
Yeah,
kind of just doing his job and keeping his head down. And then it's also the Tom Cruise show because Tom Cruise is kind of the star of this movie as well. And a lot of people say this is Tom Cruise's best role. Would you agree with that, RB3?
No. But it's a good role.
What would you say is Tom Cruise's best role?
I'm always going to say Magnolia.
Okay.
So whenever anybody from that movie or thing just comes up, I'm just always going to say that.
I don't know why. You're right. It might not be his best role, but it might be my favorite, RB3. I really like Tom Cruise in this movie because he feels less Tom Cruise-y than in his other movies. I personally feel. I feel like this is the less Tom Cruise. This
is the only movie where he plays the villain.
Yeah. I feel like he's not playing Ethan Hunt, I guess, because I feel like Ethan Hunt also made an appearance in the Mummy movie, if you guys remember that. It's basically Ethan Hunt, right? I mean, that's the whole concept of like Tom Cruise playing a version of himself, and it's, at least in this movie, I feel like he's different, right? Obviously, he's a much more disciplined, he's a hitman, he knows what he's doing, but at the same time, the stoicness nature that a lot of people master, Tom Cruise really masters well in this movie.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest... What do you think is the biggest thing people are going to remember from this movie?
The biggest thing from Collateral, I always feel like, is the LA setting. I think that's one of the nicer elements of it. I also think the aesthetic of it is so unique and so interesting that it kind of established its own thing. And that's largely due to the way it was shot. This was Michael Mann's first time shooting a movie completely on digital. So instead of, all of his movies are usually shot on film, usually have that kind of like not clean look at LA, but kind of this like more polished, more cinematic interpretation of the city and the nice guy and the things. But when you look at this movie, it's very digital, it's very grainy, it looks digital, looks amateur on purpose to give it that raw authenticity that is consistent with the style of Michael Mann, but it's just updated for using digital technology.
Sure. I like that. Yeah, and also his use of color, right? Because I feel like color really makes a point and a stand out in this movie. Yeah. Especially with Tom Cruise's crazy hair.
With the white hair,
Because every background Tom Cruise is, it really stands out because you're like, whether it's like a blue background or whether it's the Taxi background, you feel like, he stands out because he's got a different look.
And I think that's what makes it, that's what's really cool about setting it mostly at night is that it gives it that atmosphere, but he pops out and he's like the the ghost that creeps through the night.
Oh shit!
You know what I mean?
RB3 spitting bars, man.
Hey, man,
where's Eminem,
bro? Eminem, man.
Where you at, Eminem?
Eminem, you ready for that diss track, bro? I'm ready, bro. Come on, homie.
Yeah, man. It really is that, and obviously, who plays the who was I forget her name in this movie.
Shaka Khan. No, I'm just kidding.
She was the last one that. Oh, Jada Pinkett Smith. How can I be so stupid?
Oh yeah,
Jada Pinkett Smith in this movie too.
Yeah,
and how she keeps coming up in these Michael Mann movies, bro.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding. But at the same time, yeah, how kind of she plays a role and how kind of Jamie Foxx has that connection to her and to her character, and the fact that this is Jamie Foxx kind of proving to us and to voters that he is a chameleon. Like he can be a chameleon.
Yeah.
Whether it be Ali, whether it be Ray, whether it be this movie, whether it be any movie that he's in, he tends to really showcase that he's not just Jamie Foxx, the singer, the entertainer, but he's also Jamie Foxx, the Oscar winner, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I always notice that he's going for it, right? You can tell when Jamie Foxx is going for it, and you can tell when he's like not trying. Yeah. But when he wants to, he really can have
he's
an incredible performance. What do you think is his best role?
I mean, I'm gonna take Ray out of it, just because I feel like everybody was gonna say like Ray. Django.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Django.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean Django's the most iconic, I think.
I still love that interview that he does where he talks about how Tarantino got so pissed at him.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the fact that he like imitates Tarantino. Yeah. It's like, wait, you're walking in here with like your Gucci bag and you're walking in here with your Louis Vuitton. You're a slave. You're a slave.
Yeah. Fucking Tarantino, man.
When he imitates him, dude, it's so good. When he imitates people, it's the best, bro.
Yeah,
when he told that Kanye West story too. Have you heard the Kanye story that he tells? He tells it all the time, but it's still a funny story.
Best storyteller, probably.
He really is. He's such a good storyteller, man. Goes Jamie Foxx, then Finstock.
Finstock, yeah, definitely Finstock.
He's a good storyteller too, man.
Absolutely.
I've told him. I was like, bro, you're a good storyteller.
Can't wait to see the new puppet show that he's.
He posted. I actually kind of was kind of hype on that because he told us at that
he
party.
Told us a long time ago.
I think it was Riley's party. I forget what it was.
Yeah, it was a Christmas party.
Oh, it was a Christmas party. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And he was telling us the whole thing that he was going to do. He was like, bro, I got these controversial jokes, man. And I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
We're like encouraging him to be more controversial.
Hey, man, listen. Well, 9 days, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. You got me. But at the same time, we'll give an exception to Tom.
Yeah.
Tom's cool.
Yeah.
Miami Vice, Public Enemy's, Black Hat. The trilogy, bro. Let's finish up with these three.
Of sucking ass.
Yeah, I
know. I'm kidding. Michael Mann, please. Oh, my God. We've been doing nothing but sucking your dick, Michael Mann. Don't hate us for these last 2 movies.
We got to turn it around.
Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of...
Sucking ass.
Turn it around. And give Michael Mann.
You got to turn this shit around, literally.
Yeah.
And then put it in the toilet. No, I'm playing.
Oh, shit.
Miami Vice, Public Enemy's, Black Hat. Which one stands out?
Well, none of them, but Black Hat does have a director's cut that apparently is significantly better than the theatrical cut. So I do have to consider that.
I'll give it. It's interesting because all three of these movies star kind of big names as far as white dudes go.
Johnny Depp,
Colin Farrell. And Chris Hemsworth, yeah. 3 white dudes that are really...
Look at this guy.
What am I saying?
Miami Vice got Jamie Foxx too, don't it?
Oh, yeah, he does. But Colin Farrell, bro. Why you shitting on Colin Farrell?
I'm not shitting on Colin Farrell. I can't believe you're just like... the way you frame that question is just amazes me. You're just like, hey, so let's see here. He has 3 movies. And all-star white people. What do you think, RB3?
They gotta get me on that Fox News, bro. Nah, I'm just playing. Yeah, I mean, either way, man, he does have his want to put in different leading men throughout these movies, but props to him for giving Chris a chance, man, because he's still the best Chris. He tried.
Nah, he's not the best Chris.
He's the best Chris, man. You can't. After you see that bicep, as he types in shit in his laptop, and he's typing with the bicep.
Yo, what is this, 1982? Like, why the fuck do we have to have like?
You need to have freaking bulging muscles to really make a point and a statement. Yeah, I mean, for me, nothing really stands out here between the 3 of them. I mean, at least Black Hat had a cool trailer That's kind of it.
Cody said from the booth that he liked Public Enemies.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did like Public. I didn't really care for it. And then Johnny Depp is
yeah, he's problematic.
The only one that I'm cool with in Johnny Depp was Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco?
Yeah.
I fuck with, actually, what I just watched with Johnny. Oh, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Oh, okay.
That's my shit.
Yeah. For me, Donnie Brasco, everything else is like, nah. I don't get Johnny Depp. Yeah, that's just me personally.
Edward Scissorhands is dope too, though.
Either way, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode from Michael Mann. Hopefully you can leave us in the comment section down below. What is your favorite Michael Mann movie? What is your favorite Michael Mann moment? Let us know in the comments down below, because we will be reading them next week on next week's episode, where we'll be talking about another legendary director. And we will have a nice guest come into the studio. Our guest is... Find out next week.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. Our guest is Copster.
Hey.
Copster's our guest for next week. And go listen to the Natalie Portman rap and tell me how right I am. And I'll tell RB3. Yeah. I want to see an image of Natalie Portman rapping as I talk about that segment. And how she's better than Cardi B.
No, she's definitely better than Eminem. I can tell you that right now.
Hey, shout out at Eminem, guys, and tell him that RB3 wants to rap battle him.
Yes, please. Actually,
at him. I want you to at him and then at RB3.
If Eminem want to come at
me
with
bro.
Tag them whack ass bars he's been spinning for the past 20 years, come at me, bro.
Ooh. And yes, I mean a penis. All right, guys. Venom. I'm wearing denim, venom. Either way, guys, let us know what you thought of this episode, and please keep listening, keep liking, keep supporting us, keep liking us, because we will be coming back with more episodes. Part of the Meaning Of podcast, I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out. Peace out, guys.